high, but that's about as good as it's going to get, isn't it? All right, well, got some of the ceiling there, but my friends, hello, Dr. Graham here with another presentation of a continuing program of practical mentalism, reprogramming your mind for success, and keeping in mind, most importantly, that you were born to succeed. So that does take a reprogramming of the mind, doesn't it? I hope that you've taken the time to watch, listen, more importantly than watching, the previous videos here of the presentations I've given in this series, so you'll know where we're at, where we are. I've been in the South too long. Where we are. We have talked about pulling back the curtains and seeing the reality of our own lives. We've talked about the fact that our lives are intentional. We've talked about the fact that too many of us choose to be blind. And then we've talked about the core of mentalism. Now we're going to talk about changing your mental filter. As difficult as it may be for a lot of people, accepting the fact that the world and its stimuli are essentially neutral, which we talked about previously, is actually the easiest part, as difficult as it is. It's absolutely necessary, and no progress can be made if you can't make it past that point. But in the big scheme of things, that point, that part, comes out to be the easiest. I don't know if you notice this or not, but to reprogram your mind for success is work. So you see, the programming that took place in your mind to get you where you are now, and didn't get you where you would really like to be, happened in your most formative years. It happened without you thinking about it. Now to reprogram your mind, you've got to think about it. So everything else past this point requires a tremendous amount of effort. I'm not saying that you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and break into a sweat. This isn't a physical effort. Instead, there's something much more difficult. If it were physical, it'd be easy. You know what you do. You grab the tools, you grab the implements, break a sweat, get it done. But believe it or not, it's easier for people to do those physical things than to take this mental action. When you take a mental action, you're going to be facing more resistance. Why? You're going to be going against how you normally think, how you are programmed to think. You're going to have to confront and to overcome your mental habits. You're going to have to deal with your attitude. And you'll notice we're not pointing the fingers out here and saying, oh, it's the way I was raised, I didn't have the opportunity, it's their fault, they need to change. No, that's not what we're talking about. As the old saying goes, you're going to have to take the kid out of the country, or you can take the kid out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the kid. Let me get that thing straight. Now you can mix and match all sorts of things for the word kid and country, for the word kid and country, but you get to decide, you've got to decide, you get to decide whether you will get the same result. We're a product of our upbringing, our environment, and our past. That's where your initial programming took place. These all work together, that environment, where you came from, your past. They all work together with our choices to produce our mental filters. And to understand, please understand, that given this reality, it's very hard to change this mental filter. How does a mental filter affect you? How does it affect your life? It all boils down to interpretation. That filter is helping you to interpret things. It's what, if you put a filter on a camera lens, it affects what the camera sees. You can tone it down, you can make it more subtle, you can make it more brilliant. Since the stimuli coming in are neutral, we choose to become aware of certain facts instead of others, and this leads to short interpretations. These certain facts are more likely to support certain interpretations, called preconceived notions. If that isn't bad enough, then we look at what we choose to pay attention to and pick one of many different interpretations. Now you may be thinking at this point, it's fairly straightforward. But no, it isn't. This isn't just happening in your mind. It isn't just something that is easy to blow off, where you can easily say, well, everybody looks at different things in different ways, and it all leads to the same place anyways, because no, it does not. That should be obvious for the divisions, the way we view things, the gun activists, the gun rights activists against the gun control people, and on and on and on to infinity with these different subjects. They view things, they see things differently, because you choose to interpret what you choose to pay attention to in a certain way. You're making those choices like we covered in earlier discussions. This leads to emotional states. And please understand that interpretations are never emotionally neutral. What's happening all out here is neutral, but your interpretations, your emotions, those are never neutral. There's always an emotional payload to them. It may not involve drama. It may not involve some sort of strong emotion, but there's still emotion. There's still an emotional component. Believe it or not caring or apathy in itself is an emotional state. Now that your interpretation has triggered this emotional state, what happens next while your emotional state, like it or not, and regardless of whether you are aware of it, impacts how you talk and how you act. It also impacts what your focus is on. When you start talking a certain way with people, you start influencing people around you because they listen to you. More importantly, when you act a certain way because you assume that things are a certain way. We make a lot of assumptions. These actions are not restricted to you. This is the point where your thoughts do change your reality. Let's get this one thing very, very clear. The world doesn't care about your feelings. It really doesn't. It couldn't care less about your motivations, intentions, ideas, theories, and whatnot. If you just keep them in your head, even if you impress them very emotionally, chances are the world still wouldn't care. Now, there's a good chance that you would have a strong impact if you actually published this information, and it caught a lot of people's attention. Still, by and large, your intentions and emotions really don't impact the world. However, the world cannot help but sit up and pay attention. When you let your emotional state change how you believe, at that point, you start changing your reality. At that point, your actions start impacting the people and the things around you. It wasn't your attitude. It wasn't your interpretations. It ended up being your actions that made the difference. You start changing your world, and the world can't help but react. This is how we edit our reality. And it all begins with our thoughts and our mental filters. By just making key changes at each step of the process, you end up changing the actions that you take. When you change your habitual actions, you change your life. This is how mentalism works. It's all about taking full ownership of your mental power. When you read certain situations in your life, whether they're happening now or whether it happened in the past, always understand that you can choose your filter. Always understand that there is at least one filter that is empowering. At the very least, it won't make you feel small, weak, powerless, and passive. Find that filter. Read a situation in a way where you remain in control. That's the filter you want. You will always say to yourself, if I feel negative, it's because I've chosen to feel negative. If I feel small and weak and powerless, it's because I've chosen to feel that way. The more you keep coming back to that affirmative statement of a quote, it's because I have chosen that quote. You are doing it right. You are on the right path. Why? Because you've chosen to take off your blinders to the superpower that you have. The only power you need in this life is your choice. Your power of choice. This is what shapes your reality. This is what gives birth to a brand new or universal universe of opportunities for you. You're not your past. Even if you're 50 years old, you're not your past. You can still go back to school. You can get retrained, even if you have been physically abused, bruised, and battered in the past. You don't have to be that back then. You can start now. You can still have better relationships. It is your choice. And all of this, it is all your choice. This is why you have to keep coming back to the power of your choice. This is the most empowering realization you'll ever get. Use this as the bedrock of all filters. You choose to be aware of it, and you choose to craft for yourself. We have talked about many of these points in different ways up to this point. Your life is lived by intention. You may not realize that you're making choices. You may not realize that it is by your intention. Because of the programming you received early in life, most likely in those formative years, and because of your life experiences, both positive and negative, your actions and reactions throughout life, you have these preconceived notions about life in general, about all these issues. And most likely because of our culture, because of where we're raised, because of our environment, because of our family, because of our church, because of all these things, we're interpreting, we're making a choice. Because we have this filter, that filter was put in place when we were very young, normally. We may have slowly changed the filter a little bit. But change the filter dramatically so you can begin to see your reality different, so you can change your actions and change your life and change your future. It takes a lot of work to change that filter. We'll deviate here for 1 second as I close out this one, and then more to come. This is the, so far, I think, the 6th presentation I've done on this subject to help us to grow, to help us live a more fuller, abundant life. As Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you, and that you could have a life of abundance. That abundance does not necessarily have to mean material gain, a lot of money and those things. Some people I know that have very little in the way of money and stuff have a very full, abundant life because they're having experiences. They've got relationships that are good. I know some that travel constantly. They're on the road constantly seeing, experiencing new, interesting, fascinating things. The choice is yours. If you use the crutch to say, I can't, maybe next year. See, the time is never right, is it? The circumstances are never right. I didn't have the privilege of this. I didn't have the privilege of that. We live in a time where we are well beyond just the information age. We are deluged with information. You don't have to go to a library anymore. You can lay in your bed with a tablet, with a smartphone. You can tap into the world for the information you want, to find what you want. But yet, even with all that at our fingertips, we are still enslaved by this system, aren't we? We are still locked in. We cannot break free because we have this pre-programming. It starts young. It starts even younger now than it did when I was a kid. Now, these kids are like just seemingly months old. It's like, get them to preschool, get them to kindergarten, get them in this schooling, get them in this, get them in that. Push, 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 push. Involved in this. Every year it's a different sport, it's a different this, it's a different... See, you want to, the system has been designed now to keep everybody in this institution. You have no time to think because there's a deluge of stuff and the peripheral is there constantly. Nobody sits back anymore, and you're called lazy if you do, to sit back in the quiet, to sit back in solitude, to turn everything off, to let the silence overwhelm you, and decide what you want. There's a show coming. There's a movie coming. There's a game. There's a football game. There's a potential of this. There's a potential of constant. Something else leading you. And you think you've got freedom. But why do you do the things you do? Because it's popular in your culture. It's popular among your group of people, your peers. Oh, most of my friends are Alabama fans. Most of my friends are Auburn fans. Most of my friends don't like football at all. They're into games. Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation. You've got to fit into one of these molds as long as you spend that time in an institution being taught not how to think, but being taught what to think. Nobody ever taught you that you've got the freedom to think. No God's going to punish you because you dared to think. Your eternity's not going to change because you open your mind, you question, and you thought. No loving, benevolent God is going to condemn you because you dare to say, what? What am I thinking? What have I been taught? What is this? Is this real? Is this the path that I really want to be on? See, we all choose normally the path of least resistance. What's the simplest? What's the easiest way to get this done? That's the way we live our lives. There's less traffic on that road, so let's go that way. The destination is the same. We're focused, and everybody goals. We missed the point. Goals. What do you want to be in 5 years? What do you want to be when you grow up? We push that as soon as the kids can talk and walk. What do you want to be when you grow up? Where do you want to go to school? What? Where do you want to be when you're 20? Where do you want to be when you're 30? Where do you want to be when you're 40? Where do you want to be when you're 50? Never in the moment. We sit around, we're not talking about where we are. We're talking about where we've been and where we hope to be. And the moment we're in is gone. We gave it up for the past and for the future. This moment never existed. We didn't pay attention to it. It escaped us because we gave it away. Because we have this filter. Because we were programmed. Because we didn't pull back the curtains to see our reality. Because we were told not to. Because we were told, don't do that. You've got to fit in this system. There's one thing, no matter what your beliefs, there's one thing for certain. In this existence, no matter what you think about an eternity or an afterlife and so forth, what we know is that all you've got is this time. Birth, death. Sadly, that space of time is being sold out, eagerly, freely, to institutions, to other men's thoughts, to other men's ideas. See, this is why the Bill Gates of the world are the few. This is why very few come up with phenomenal, great ideas, because the rest of us are just toward the line, fitting in, doing our job, so we can go home and watch Walking Dead, so we can go home and watch the football game, so we can go to happy hour, so we can talk about, oh yes, back in the day, the good old days. Or I'm working for the good days, the good old days tomorrow. Oh yes, when I'm 65, I'm going to retire and go fishing. What if you don't make it to 65? What if this is it? What if this is all you've got? This moment is it, and you're giving it away because you're scared to think. Because you're scared you won't fit in the system. They sold you with fear. Fear because there's so many people. Everybody's going to college. You've got to get that degree or you won't get a job. Despite the fact some of the most successful men in the world today dropped out of college. Their schooling didn't get their success in life. What got their success in life was being a free thinker, having an open mind, asking questions. Stay tuned. We'll talk about this more.